Hello and welcome back to Better Know a Poet. Today we are doing D. D is for Dickinson, Emily Dickinson. I don't know if she is my namesake, but you never know. She may be. So this is Emily Dickinson, the great 19th century American poet. Emily Dickinson, along with Walt Whitman and Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, is considered one of the greatest American poets of the 19th century. Of Dickinson's nearly 1,800 poems, only 10 were known to have been published in her lifetime. She wrote without giving heed to the traditional forms of verse or even grammar. Yet, the epigrammatic nature of much of her poetry makes her lines concise, direct, personal, and raw. Emily Dickinson was born in 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts, and died in 1886. She was the second of three children, having an older brother, Austin, and sister, Lavinia. Her father, Edward Dickinson, was a forceful and prosperous Whig lawyer who served as treasurer of the college and was elected to one term in Congress. Her mother was a hard-working housekeeper. Frail as a young girl, Emily was often kept home from school. She eventually attended Amherst Academy, where she was recognized for abilities in composition. She also excelled in Latin and the sciences. Upon graduation, Emily left home to enter Mount Holyoke Female Seminary in nearby South Hadley. However, the seminary's strict rules and intense religious practices led Emily to not return for a second year. Religiously, Emily was raised as an evangelical Calvinist. However, her distaste for the doctrine of total depravity led her to abandon any strict religious creed. This was encouraged by her growing interest in transcendentalism and the liberal Protestantism of her day. Though Dickinson began composing verse in her late teens, she did not fully give herself to her poetic vocation until her mid 20s. At the age of 25, Dickinson returned with her family to her first home, the Dickinson Mansion on Main Street in Amherst. It was here that Emily would spend the rest of her life, becoming more and more reclusive. In 1858, at the age of 28, Dickinson began compiling manuscript books of her poems. She made clean copies of her poems on fine quality stationery, and then sewed the small bundles of these sheets together at the fold. Over the next 7 years, she created 40 such booklets. Altogether, they contained about 800 poems. In these years of her early 30s, many of Dickens's poems contain references to a loved but distant figure, typically male. In three of her personal letters, she refers to a person she called Master. Though many have speculated about who this individual may be, no definite conclusion has been reached. In 1865, at the age of 35, Dickinson became a permanent recluse. For the next 15 years, she composed an average of 35 poems a year, carrying on any semblance of a social life through written messages alone. Her isolation was only exacerbated by the sudden death of her father in 1874, the incapacity and subsequent death of her mother, the loss of several close friends, and the culminating tragedy of the death of her 8-year-old nephew in 1883. It is believed that these tragedies helped to precipitate the poet's own death in 1886, accelerated by severe hypertension when she was only 55 years old. Dickinson's unique voice, along with the simple accessibility of her verses to readers world over, have encouraged them to place her in the pantheon of the greats next to writers such as Sappho, Catullus, the Shakespeare of the Sonnets, and Rainer Maria Rilke. So Dickinson is seen as an extremely unique poet for her style and her simplicity of address. All of her poems, even if you see them, they are in very brief, simple language, epigrammatic in style, meaning sort of concise and to the point. But she has so many of them that she can't help being labeled as just one of the greats because she produced just so much. So what I want to read today is I want to read just a handful of her poems, maybe the 4 or 5 most well-known ones in Bloom's collection. So I'm going to start with this first one. It's probably her most well-known. It's called There's a Certain Slant of Light. There's a certain slant of light winter afternoons, that oppresses like the heft of cathedral tunes. Heavenly hurt it gives us, we can find no scar, but internal difference where the meanings are. None may teach it any, 'tis the seal despair, an imperial affliction sent us of the air. When it comes, the landscape listens, shadows hold their breath. When it goes, 'tis like the distance on the look of death. This one's called I Started Early, Took My Dog. I started early, took my dog, and visited the sea. The mermaids in the basement came out to look at me, and frigates in the upper floor extended hempen hands, presuming me to be a mouse aground upon the sands. But no man moved me till the tide went past my simple shoe, and past my apron and my belt, and past my bodice too, and made as he would eat me up, as wholly as a dew, upon a dandelion sleeve, and then I started too. And he followed close behind. I felt his silver heel upon my ankle, then my shoes would overflow with pearl, until we met the solid town, no one he seemed to know, and bowing like a mighty look at me, the sea withdrew. Here's another really famous one. It's called Because I Could Not Stop for Death. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. The carriage held but just ourselves and immortality. We slowly drove, he knew no haste, and I had put away my labor and my leisure too, for his civility. We passed the school where children strove at recess in the ring. We passed the fields of gazing grain. We passed the setting sun. Or rather, he passed us. The dews drew quivering and chill, for only gossamer, my gown, my tippet, only till. We paused before a house that seemed a swelling of the ground. The roof was scarcely visible, the cornice in the ground. Since then, 'tis centuries, and yet feels shorter than the day I first surmised the horses' heads were towards eternity. Let's do just a couple more. This is called My Life Had Stood a Loaded Gun. My life had stood a loaded gun in corners till a day the owner passed, identified, and carried me away. And now we roam in sovereign woods, and now we hunt the doe, and every time I speak for him, the mountains straight reply. And I do smile such cordial light upon the valley glow, it is as a Vesuvian face had let its pleasure through. And when at night, our good day done, I guard my master's head, 'tis better than the eider duck's deep pillow to have shared. To foe of his I'm deadly foe, none stir the second time, on whom I lay my yellow eye, or an emphatic thumb. Though I than he may longer live, he longer must than I, for I have but the power to kill, without the power to die. And these are all just fantastic. We'll read just one more. This is called I Dwell in Possibility. I dwell in possibility, a fairer house than prose, more numerous of windows, superior for doors, a chambers of the cedars, impregnable of eye, and for an everlasting roof, the gambrels of the sky. Of visitors the fairest, for occupation this, the spreading wide my narrow hands, to gather paradise. Ah, that's good. It's good stuff. All right, so that's Emily Dickinson. We will see you tomorrow when we do our poet beginning with F. See you then.